Okay, students. So
Then
today we are going to start with the new chapter. So this is again from Standard 10. How do organisms reproduce? This is the part from biology. Earlier, what we did light, it was physics. Before that, we did chemical reaction. That was chemistry. So now this is the concepts that most of us are familiar with, but there are few terms, concepts which we need to know. I hope some extra things. Yes. Now, what does it mean? Reproduction. How do organisms reproduce? We have to see about how these copies. Copies means what? Reproduction means we are reproducing the same of our own, like a human being. So, what this basic procedure, what this basic thing inside this is? You have told the types of reproduction, that is okay, asexual, sexual, and there are different types in asexual that we'll see. Now here reproduction, they we see around ourselves, there are many, every living thing reproduces. Yes. So is it needed for an organism to live? All of us know organisms are surviving. It's from ages they are carrying on and they are continuing their species, isn't it? So, is it any need for an organism to live? Not at all. But an organism has to perform, it has no problem if living itself, its life, if it doesn't reproduce. It means if today, if we say, you must have heard that there are many animals which are endangered, they will end up after some years, they will be finished after some years. It is not that their
growth also.
is not taking place, but their numbers are less, and there are different other conditions which are not favoring. But yes, in many cases organisms survive, organisms, the species live. And how does it happen? Because the reproduction place is taking place, their genes are getting transferred, they are able to produce the copies of their own type. Yes. What does an elephant baby will look like? An elephant baby will look like its own, the calf, elephant calf. The elephant baby cannot give birth to a cow calf, isn't it? So why is it happening? Because the elephant is passing on its DNA, or you can say its genes, yes, to its to the offspring. Yes. I hope the basic thing, what is there in reproduction, you have understood. So elephant will reproduce. The reproducing organisms create new individuals that look very much like themselves. Similar in case of butterflies also. But butterflies go a phase called as metamorphosis, and that metamorphosis is the different stages in their life cycle, where first it is a caterpillar, it hatches from an egg, it is a caterpillar, it feeds on leaves, then it covers itself inside the cocoon, and then the changes in the body takes place, and finally a butterfly comes out. Now, similar body design, or you can say the blueprint or planning, has to be similar. We cannot say an elephant will give birth to another elephant calf with a very small trunk or very small ears. No, it has to be similar, very similar. Yes, offspring means the children. Palash, offspring means the children. This is a
Yes, ma'am.
biological term. Now, blueprint means the same, exact copy. Exact copy. Okay. Now, here you will see in the cell, all of us know that we have cells. In the cell, there is nucleus. Yes. Inside the nucleus, yes, that is a full form of DNA. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA is riboxynucleic acid. Now, coming to this, nucleus has chromosomes. You can see the chromosomes here. Yes, the chromosome has DNA. Now, this is called as double helical structure or double helix DNA. About these structures you will study in higher classes, but here just need to know the basic thing. This is double helix DNA. In this DNA, genes are present. Like there are some bases like CT, GC, like C is cytosine, T is for thymine, G is for guanine, and U is for uracil. So in these kind of bases are present, and they give you the genes. These are the genes. You can say RNA is single and DNA is double. Correct. Double helical structure. It is. The structure is called as double helical or double strand. Like these are double strand, you can say, and this is double helical structure, something like this. So these two strands are like this, double helical.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Okay, so let us see now how does a cell become two cells? Now here the cell division takes place. About these terms you will study in higher classes. There are two types of divisions like meiosis and mitosis. Meiosis 1, meiosis 2. So in higher classes, if you opt for biology, you will study. So what happens in cell division? First, the it divides and makes a copy of itself where the DNA gets copied. First, the DNA divides. Suppose this is your cell and this is your nucleus. In your nucleus, this is your chromosome and it has DNA. So this DNA copying takes inside first. The DNA copying will take place and then the nucleus separates, something like this. Something like this, the nucleus will separate. I can show it to you here. Two different nucleus will be formed, and then in the next step the cells separate into two with two distinct nucleus. So in this way the cell divides and DNA gets copied. So this in this way DNA copying takes place. How does again cell becomes two? Can't the cells just make a copy of DNA and push it out? No, not at all. DNA needs some base because it is present in the nucleus and nucleus is present in the cell. So we cannot just push out the DNA. It needs some base or something to survive. And that is why it multiplies or it DNA duplication takes place inside the cell and then cell separates. So coming back to cell copies, are the two cells exactly same? Yes or no? Like you yourself can take example, you are copies or we are children of our parents, right? We are same as our parents, but are we exactly the same or are we little bit different? We are little bit different, correct? Because whenever some people meet us, maybe some outsiders come, and if they meet they say, oh, she her face is like her father, or his face is like father and eyes are like mother. So we are quite kind of mix of both, right? We are not exactly the same. So what is this, we are not same? Here actual term comes, that is variation. Variation means change. Change in some DNA sequence takes place here. So ideally a yes, but what is the reason? There are copying errors. Errors means when the DNA copying takes place, there are some changes in the sequence of the DNA. Suppose, like I said, in higher classes you will read, suppose earlier here it was A which was paired with T, these are some bonds, C which was paired with G. In DNA copying, you saw A is now paired with U and maybe some other sequences following. So that is what the errors arise or some change takes place. And in that case, variation occurs. So when a cell divides, there are two cells exactly identical. No, not exactly identical. The DNA information can change a little bit in the daughter cells. Now, what are these daughter cells? The cells which are formed after copying of DNA. They are called as daughter cells. And so, the copies of DNA will be little bit different from the original one. So, where is the design information of an organism stored then? It is stored in the DNA. And if the information in the DNA changes, the body design will for sure change. And this brings, as I said, this word, which is an important word, this is variation. It is actually a mistake, but it is important. It is not a bad thing. In 8.1.1, you will read about how it is important. This variation, we'll see 8.1.1. So you can read this para at home. Maybe first paragraph I'll read for you. The population of organisms, just a minute. The population of organisms fill well-defined places or niches. What is a niche? Niche is, again, you can say organisms or a group of organisms which are residing in a particular species. So that is niche. In the ecosystem, all of you know what ecosystem is. The ecosystem, like, which is considering of plants, animals, land, water, air, everything, using their ability to reproduce. The consistency of DNA copying during reproduction is important for maintenance of body design features that allow the organism to use that particular niche. Means it should be able to survive in that particular surrounding or ecosystem. Reproduction is therefore linked to stability of populations of species. However, niches can change because of reasons beyond the control of organisms. Temperatures here. Temperatures on Earth can go up or down. Water levels can vary. Or there could be meteorite hits. To think of a few examples, if the population of reproducing organisms was suited to a particular niche, and if the niche was drastically altered, the population could be wiped out. It means if a particular population is living in an area where there is enough water, enough food for them, but if there is a landslide or some natural calamity, if it happens in that particular place, most of the organisms can die of that particular species. Or now acclimatization is different. That will come with adaptation, because there are some organisms which adapt, but there are some organisms which cannot adapt. So it varies. You can go through all this, and how variation is important, you can see. Variation is thus useful for the survival of species over time. One example I can give you, decades ago or centuries ago, when there were many plants or many trees, the a horse like a thing, we can say, because originally it was a small animal. Okay, but later on, with grazing in that particular area, the horses used to graze in particular area, and the grass was over. Later on, they shifted to other place. Again, the grass was over. They had to stretch up. They had to stretch up to reach to the leaves of the trees. Now, this type of evolution took many years, many years. So some could adjust, or some could change to that. Some could adapt to that environment or that condition, and some, yes, Nikhil, some could not. So those who could not, they died, and those who could, in them the variation in the genes also took place, and they could survive over the time. Now you can go through these questions also. What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction, and why is variation beneficial to the species but not necessarily for the individual? We'll see about this question. Please go through this, read this very carefully. Here the answer is given to you. What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction? So, transmission of parental characteristics. Yes. So here points are given to you, students. If you are writing the answers in your exams, you have, assignments also, you have to elaborate your answers. Don't just write these points. Please elaborate your answers in complete sentences. Then, errors in copying lead to to genetic variation. Again, it is important because it helps them in adjusting to different climate or different atmosphere, and it also helps for evolution of species. You will see different examples for this question later on. Okay. Next question was, why is variation beneficial to the species but not necessary for the individual? It allows organisms to exist in diverse habitats. Yes, because if there is variation, means if there are some changes in the genes, it can easily adjust to the different habitat or different environment, different ecosystem, you can say. Would be boring if there won't be variation from person to person. Yes, just imagine if there was no variation in the genes or in your DNA, all the human beings would look similar. All animals are looking similar, but in case of human beings, I'm saying they would look similar. Variation is important. It's not just the looks. From inside also, there are many changes. You will enjoy this chapter. There are many good examples about your own self, about human being, about animals, about plants. The second point, if environment changes, some organisms with suitable variations can continue to live and keep species alive. And that is why variation is important. Yes, because there are some variations which can help them to adjust to that particular climate, maybe. Yes, climate. Why I am taking this term? Because yes, diversity is means they should be able to adjust in different kinds of climate. Saying climate because nowadays temperature is the major thing which is changing in many places, and hard to identify the people if their DNA was same. Yes. Then in normal conditions, it is of no significance to the individual. If there is no variation for individual, it is of no use. So you can describe it, you can explain it in your own words. Don't just write the same points. Some questions from exercise in page 141. I'll show you the exercise and the questions are given here. You can go through these questions. How does reproduction help in providing stability to populations of species? The answer given here is a species occupies a well-defined niche. It is given from your book only. In an ecosystem, using its stability to reproduce. During reproduction, copies of DNA passes from one generation to the next. All of you know, because you would have heard people saying if they are meeting you for the first time, like I said, if they are meeting you for the first time, they would say, oh, this, if they're talking to you, oh, he has got some genes from his grandfather. He has got some habits from his grandfather. Yes. So that is what the DNA copying is taking place, and it is passing on from generation to generation. So we can say we have genes from our forefathers or great 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 grandfathers, grandparents. Yes, so it is passed on from generation to generation. So this copying of DNA takes place with consistency in reproducing organisms. This is important for maintenance of body design. So for basic body design features, it is important. Yes, so which allows the organisms to use the particular niche. Reproduction is therefore linked to stability of population of species. So for a particular species, if you are talking about, for example, a particular turtle species, yes, when they are reproducing, they are passing on their genes or their DNA from generation to generation, and hence it is giving stability to the population and their species are surviving. You can read this. Why organisms reproduce 8.1. We have here 8.1, just 8.1 you need to read. Do organisms create exact copies of themselves? So here again, you can read about how copying of DNA takes place. Like I will read here. Organisms look similar because their body designs are similar. If body designs are to be similar, the blueprints of these designs should be similar. Blueprints means your inside, your DNA. Thus, reproduction at its most basic level will involve making copies of blueprints of body design. In class ninth, we learned that the chromosomes in the nucleus of a cell contain information for inheritance of features from parents to next generation in the form of DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid molecules. The DNA in the cell nucleus is the information source for making proteins. So DNA is basically a protein. If the information is changed, different proteins will be made, and different proteins will eventually lead to altered body design or different characteristics or features, you can say. So these are the chromosomes. These are called as sex chromosomes. XY for girls and XY for boys and XX for girls. X chromosome, Y chromosome. These are called as sex chromosomes. Now, therefore, the basic event in reproduction is the creation of DNA, or you can say copying of DNA. Another term given to this is DNA replication. Replica, what you say? DNA replication also is another term given to it. Cells use chemical reactions to build copies of DNA. This creates two copies of DNA in the reproducing cell, and they will need to be separated from each other. Like I said, in one cell, one nucleus, inside it, the DNA is there. Suppose this is your chromosome, DNA is there. So copying will take place, DNA copying. This is your nucleus. Suppose you have got the copies here like this, and inside the nucleus first tries to separate like this with each DNA in it, separate DNA and the copying DNA, the original and the copied one, and then finally it separates. After the nucleuses are separated, what is this? Cytoplasm. This also separates, and then finally you get two different cells. So this you have to read complete 8.1 and then 8.1.1 till the end of page 1 to 8. So 8.1 we have seen. After that, students, as about different types of reproduction. Before that, I would like to share my screen, and in short, I would like to just present and show you how it looks like, or what basically it is, the reproduction and its types. So here it is. Here you can see reproduction is of two types: the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction we will be reading later. First, we will see asexual reproduction. Asexual means the reproduction in which your what do you say, the sex chromosomes or the XY chromosomes, what you say, they are not involved. The asexual reproduction takes place by different parts of the body. They don't have specific organ for it. Their different types are fission, fragmentation, regeneration, budding, and spore formation. Where you will see different example in fission. Fission is again of two types: binary fission and multiple fission. Fragmentation, you will see some examples. Regeneration, there are some examples. Same in budding and spore formation. So till now, is this clear to all of you? What is reproduction? So that is what, in this a single parent is there. A single parent is involved. There are not two parents in asexual reproduction. So single parent, no sex chromosomes like X and Y, something like that. No, it takes place from the mostly the different parts, vegetative parts of the body. Yes, alone. So is it clear to all of you till now what is DNA copying and what is variation? Okay. Let us start asexual reproduction. So here, in asexual reproduction, again, as there are different types in this also, you can see a single organism in this, as Nikhil said, no partner, or there are not two parents, there is only one parent, or a single organism gives birth or gives rise to another organism or offspring, you can say. Here, can a single organism reproduce all by itself? Yes, in case of asexual reproduction. So that you can see here the example is given. What is this? What organism is this? Can you tell me? Yes. So amoeba is a unicellular organism. All of us know. It has a nucleus in between. Earlier, as I have explained you, earlier while explaining, I showed how the nucleus divides and then the cell divides. Yes. In this case, as I said, there is no DNA, no sex chromosomes, nothing. Only the nucleus is dividing into two. Yes. And then the cell divides. And this is a type of asexual reproduction. Is this clear? Now, this is called as fission. This is called as fission. This is how organisms reproduce by the process of fission. Now, where one cell divides into two, this type of fission is called as binary fission. You can see some examples are given to you here. So bacteria, protozoa, amoeba, you can see amoeba's picture is on the screen. Yes. So bacteria, protozoa, amoeba, these are some unicellular organisms which divide by the process of fission, and this is binary fission. Is it clear till now? We'll move on to next type of fission. We'll see. So here you can see it's written fission means splitting up. Yes, here splitting into two has taken place. Unicellular organisms can split up like this, but some organisms need to be careful. Here you can see Leishmania. Leishmania is also a unicellular organism, but can it divide in any ways or any type like how amoeba did? Can it? No. It
No,
has
ma'am.
a structure at the top of the body which the child Leishmania needs to have. If you try to cut it or if you try to divide it like this part will not have the tail and this part will not have the head. So what kind of division takes place here? You will see again. This is also fission only, but some different type. So the orientation of it is different. Yes, here you can see this thread-like structure of Leishmania is called as flagella. Flagella is a thread-like structure. First, it divides into two. Here you can see it is dividing into two. Yes, it grows. It completely grows and the nucleus also divides into two. Same time. You can see the nucleus has separated. This flagella has nicely fully grown. Now it starts the cytoplasm. It starts dividing slowly and the cell completely divides into two cells. This is also binary fission. So in binary fission, you have seen amoeba and in binary fission, you have seen Leishmania. Are these two examples understood and clear to you, all of you? Yes. See here in this chapter, you need to remember many examples because there are different types of reproduction and you have to remember
Ma'am,
the
how to say
examples
this?
because while writing in the exam or assignment also students, it is good you write or you mention at least one or two examples. See how it was happening in case of amoeba. Did you see how it was happening in amoeba? Earlier also I explained.
Yes.
First the nucleus divides. As amoeba is irregular in shape, it can divide anyways. Yes? Shape
Yes,
of
ma'am.
amoeba is not regular. It can divide anyways. So first the nucleus is dividing and it can separate in any ways and it can form two cells. But in case of
Yes, ma'am.
Leishmania, as it has different structure at the bottom, that is your tail, or you can say it is a flagella, and this is the head part or the top part, you can
Okay.
say. It cannot divide anyways. If it divides like this part will not have the tail, this part will not have the head. It cannot divide like this. So it has
Okay.
to be a proper orientation in which it can divide. So what happens? First, the flagella starts dividing. So flagella has become two. You can see two flagella here. It grows.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
grows. It grows completely. Yes. And then nucleus also starts dividing. First, always the nucleus divides. Nucleus divides into separate two, and then the body of or the cell of this leishmania starts dividing and separates into two, and then later on you will see two separate leishmanias with this flagella,
Okay, ma'am.
separate flagella. Is it clear? Till now, whatever we have done, is it clear to all of you? You can type yes in the chat box, and then we are done for today. Fission has two types, binary fission and multiple fission. Multiple fission we'll see in the next class on Monday. Okay? Okay, students, thank you. Please read the book.
If you like our videos, do share them and subscribe to our channel. If you want awesome quizzes, write to us. Keep watching and keep learning with Walnut.